Hello, my name is Bob Rietveld. Welcome to our next lesson in the study of the church. I'm the minister of the Spring Hill Christian Church of rural Oak Lockney, and we're glad that you decided to join us. We're going to continue our study on ecclesiology, or the study of the church, and how it applies to us today. We have started talking about that. Last week we started talking about the eldership and what all is included in that. We've talked about, they have administrative oversight, the thing, pastoral care, and what we're going to talk about today is the requirements for being an elder. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, just kind of introduce that idea. And then there are several different requirements from the passages that we'll be talking about. We're going to find those in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, and then Titus chapter 1, verses 5 through 9, if you want to go ahead and get your Bible out and turn to those books. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, and Titus chapter 1, verses 5 through 9. And then after a few comments about that, we're probably going to tackle the first two requirements, that of mature experience and being above reproach. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. The New Testament, the New Testament requirements for taking on the position of elder can be summarized by four key ideas: mature experience, an exemplary lifestyle, adequate ability, and the desire to serve. Many of the requirements for elders are conveniently listed in two passages in what's called the pastoral epistles. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, and Titus chapter 1, verses 5 through 9. We're going to go ahead and read 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. It is a trustworthy statement. If any man who aspires to the office of overseer, it is a fine work he desires to do. An overseer then must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, prudent, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not addicted to wine or pugnacious, but gentle, peaceable, free from the love of money. He must be one who manages his own household well, keeping his children under control with all dignity. But if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how will he take care of the church of God? And not a new convert, so that he will not become conceited and fall into the condemnation incurred by the devil. And he must have a good reputation with those outside the church, so that he will not fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. And so here, Paul writes to young Timothy, the evangelist or the preacher, the requirements of an overseer. Remember, that was one of the words that we talked about was used to mean an elder in the church. Now let's skip ahead just a little bit to Titus chapter 1, verses 5 through 9. For this reason I left you in Crete, that you would set in order what remains and appoint elders in every city as I directed you. Now, let me stop right there. Remember, we talked about appoint doesn't necessarily mean that the elder, the leader, or whatever the church chooses who the elder is going to be, and that's it. No congregational involvement. Remember we talked about what that meant was the congregation looks at the requirement, chooses the men, just like the choosing of the 7 men to be deacons in Acts chapter 6. And then the apostles put their stamp of approval on the church's choice. And that's the way we see appointing elders in this passage as well. So in verse 6, namely, if any man is above reproach, the husband of one wife, having children who believe, not accused of dissipation or rebellion. For the overseer must be above reproach as God's steward, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted to wine, not pugnacious, not fond of sordid gain, but hospitable, loving what is good, sensible, just, devout, self-controlled, holding fast the faithful word which is in accordance with the teaching, so that he will be able both to exhort in sound doctrine and to refute those who contradict. And so those are the two passages that Paul writes to young Timothy and to Titus young preachers in the church, in the early church, about the requirements for being an elder. It's not advisable to appoint men as elders who are deficient in any of these areas for the reasons that were talked about. When there are not enough godly men available to satisfy the biblical requirements, then it's better to improvise with a temporary board of men than to give the title and authority of elder to unqualified men. Now, this improvisation is a temporary board of men. It should not be a permanent thing that some denominations have, and they should not be given the title of elders. In this case, we can expect the congregation to be more tolerant with men who are temporary filling in to keep the church functioning than with men who are presuming to bear the title and the full authority of an elder. And we can expect to have less difficulty in disbanding a temporary board of men than in trying to persuade an unsuitable man to relinquish his title and authority as elder. It is the position of eldership for which the church is specifically cautioned to exercise restraint with their decision or their appointments. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22. Do not lay hands upon anyone too hastily, and therefore share responsibility for the sins of others. Keep yourself free from sin. The requirements for being an elder should be taken very, very seriously. The first one I want to talk about is mature experience. The Greek word presbyteros implies a man with mature experience. In the context of church leadership, we would expect this term to encompass the idea of maturity in spiritual matters. But the natural meaning of the term, one who is older in age, would also include the idea of maturity in life experiences. The best idea, I believe, is a man with a mature experience in Christian living, both within the church and out in the world. Elders are specifically required to possess maturity in spiritual matters. Verse 6 of 1 Timothy chapter 3. And not a new convert, so that he will not become conceited and fall into the condemnation incurred by the devil. For example, a young graduate of Bible college or seminary could have a knowledge comparable to the elders, but to perform the work effectively, he will also need a good dose of actual life experiences. I have to look back on my early years in the Christian faith, and have to see the mistakes that were made early in my life, both by myself and the church back in Knoxville. The Christian church is no longer there, but there had been a change, a firing of a minister, and they had not hired a minister yet. They were without leadership. There was only one elder, and they so desperately needed another elder, they thought. And I was going back and forth from Bible college and was preaching on the weekends, and we both thought it might be a good idea if I was an elder temporarily, and I think that was something that was a mistake. And had, hindsight's always better than foresight, they say. But I look back at that now, and I see that was a mistake. I was much too young. I had a lot of biblical knowledge. I was in the latter part of my Bible college education, but I didn't have that mature life experience as a Christian and out in the world that I think is necessary if one wants to be an elder. But we learn from our mistakes, and that's, as they say, water under the bridge, and hopefully we have learned from that. I know that I have. Elders are specifically required to possess a maturity in spiritual matters. An elder should have some solid experience in his own personal spirituality, spiritual growth, biblical knowledge, and Christian service. An elder should also have a familiarity with the operation of the church. The mature experience principle does not specify a minimum age, but it does imply that as a general rule, young men will not qualify as elders, to serve as elders. For example, a young graduate of Bible college or seminary, again, could have the knowledge comparable to the elders, but to perform that work effectively, he wouldn't have the actual life experiences. Maturity in both years and spirituality will help an elder establish his administrative authority. Youthfulness is often a hindrance in being taken seriously as a leader. The appearance of age tends to draw respect more easily than the appearance of youth. Since the servant leader style requires that you earn respect rather than demand it, it is to an elder's advantage to have the appearance of maturity in the eyes of his congregation. And so maturity, mature experience is the first requirement of an elder. Now I want to talk a little bit about being above reproach, something that is sometimes a little bit misunderstood. The exemplary lifestyle requirement demands that an elder be someone who can serve as a role model of what a godly man should look like. Thus, the fundamental rule for the character of an elder is that he be above reproach. The first item in each list of requirements in the pastoral epistles in 1 Timothy 3, verse 2, and Titus 1, 6, and 7 is above reproach. All of the other moral requirements for an elder are summarized within the idea of above reproach. The basic idea of above reproach principle is that a man is respected enough by the congregation and the community that they are pleased to have him serve as one of their spiritual leaders. The Greek word anakalemptis, Anepileptus. I gotta look at my Greek letters here. That Greek word, the English translations, the New American Standard, which is what I use, and the NIV say above reproach. The King James Version says blameless. The etymology, the breakdown of that word, derived from the idea of a boxer who guards himself so well with his fists that his adversary cannot seriously hurt him. It's used of a person whose reputation is so solid that he is not seriously hurt by the talk of other people. When this word is applied to an elder, it means that he will be a man who is not subject to serious criticism that would undermine his leadership, a man who is respected by others because of the life that he lives, and a man who, though not perfect, has reached a level of spiritual maturity that the congregation respects him as a spiritual leader. Above reproach does not require perfection, but a respectable level of spiritual maturity. The boxing imagery behind that word illustrates that point. A good boxer will get to take some hits from his opponents, but he will not be seriously hurt by any of them. Thus, an elder could still be growing in godly character as long as in the meantime he is respected by others as a good Christian man. Other examples of the above reproach principle, 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2, kosmios. The English translation in the New American Standard and NIV is respectable. King James Version is of good behavior. The Revised Standard Version says dignified. The basic idea is that they look good to others. A good reputation with those outside the church. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 7. We're going to go ahead and we'll look at the third one. He has to have a godly attitude. He actively pursues righteousness, loves what is good, Titus 1:8. The Greek word philogothos, the English translation is love what is good or lover of good men. The basic idea is that demonstrates a preference for things in life that are good and noble, talked about in Philippians 4:8. Has a strong conviction for things genuine and true, as in 1 Corinthians 13:6. Loves what is good. One is actively pursues righteousness is just, Titus 1:8. Dikaios, the English translations just, upright. The basic idea is fair and just in all of his dealings, can be trusted to render a fair judgment in matters and to keep his word or promise. He's devout. The Greek word hasios, the English word is translated devout or holy. The basic idea maintains a religious or Christian attitude at all times, even when not doing something that is religious in nature. So he needs to be, the godly attitude means actively pursuing righteousness. It also means he acts sensibly. The Greek word sophron means prudent, sensible, self-controlled, sober-minded, master of himself. I like that translation. The idea is uses clear thinking and good common sense to make reasonable decisions. Not necessarily highly educated, but a wise way of thinking. And so he needs to be able to act sensibly. And he has a good attitude regarding money. Free from the love of money. 1 Timothy 3:3. The Greek word aphalargyros. Greek derivation meaning no or not. Phileo, meaning to love. Argurion, silver. Not the lover of money. The English translations are free from the love of money, not greedy for money. The basic idea is do not let a desire for money and things unduly influence his actions or priorities. He's developed an attitude of contentment. The King James Version, I believe, incorrectly translates with a negative view of the silver, not greedy of filthy lucre. Probably influenced by Titus 1:7, where the Greek does not convey a negative connotation. He's not fond of sordid gain, for Titus 1:7 and 1 Peter 5:2. The Greek word me, iskrokerdes, me meaning no or not, iskros meaning ugly or shameful, kurdos meaning gain. And so not fond of sordid gain, not given to filthy lucre. The basic idea is nothing unethical in the way that he makes his money. The New International Version is inconsistent in its translation of this phrase and misses the intent of the Greek in 1 Peter 5:2, not pursuing dishonest gain and not greedy for money. And so same word, they just translate it differently. So those are the first three requirements of becoming an elder. There needs to be mature experience. They need to be above reproach, and they need to have a godly attitude. Hope you join us next week when we will continue in our requirements for becoming an elder in the New Testament church. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I have enjoyed presenting it. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and may God bless you.